Hi all. Um, so today I would like to talk to you about ways that you can deal with anxiety when it may come up. Now, I myself have struggled with anxiety problems for a long while, for different reasons. Um, so today I will be talking to you all about coping, ways of coping with uh, the anxiety when it does come up. Perhaps um, if you are in the throes of an anxiety attack, ways to cope in situations like that. So, firstly, understanding the anatomy of an anxiety attack. Basically, this is identifying where the anxiety is coming from. By identifying where the anxiety is coming from, um, it gives us a better idea of how to better deal with it in the long run when whenever the anxiety levels are high. Um, Self awareness, I think, is helpful in this situation because, um, as I say, identifying what could be causing the anxiety, the triggers, there may be triggers that maybe trigger us. I mean, a lot of people struggle with social anxiety. When you're out, there could be too many people around, and that could be quite overwhelming to many people, myself included. I have been in the street a few times, and rushing around, people rushing around, and all of that, especially um, me with my disability. I'm in a wheelchair, so with people walking around me, I'm at a lower level than everyone else, so getting lost in a crowd can trigger an anxiety thing in me because of my claustrophobia as well. In a sea of people, I can get quite overwhelmed. So in those situations, I've got to sort of separate from the people and find a quiet place. So um, so in that way, um, understanding the anatomy of where your anxiety is coming from in the first place, that is number one in coping when in the throes of an anxiety attack. Now, number two is to stop scaring yourself. Now, some people might think, but how can we do this when in the throes of an anxiety attack? Because it's sort of um, when we're in that overwhelming frame of mind, when we're feeling overwhelmed, it's like we're not thinking, we're not able to think properly. So basically, to stop scaring yourself, that means that to stop scaring yourself, that means when you are in the throes of an anxiety attack, it sort of escalates within yourself, and in a way that brings on the anxiety more. So in a situation like that, I know it's difficult because, as I say, I myself have been through it, but we have to remain somewhat calm in a situation like that, because if when we have an anxiety attack, we can go into panic mode and feel like we're going to pass out, or even worse, some people actually feel like they're going to have a heart attack. So the way to deal with that is to slow yourself down. Perhaps if you are in a situation where you are amongst people, find a quiet spot, maybe where there's a bench or a seat. Sit yourself down there and just take a moment. I myself, they say that you should look around and sort of get a feel for where you are and look for familiar things. But that actually doesn't work for me, because with the social anxiety thing, it's sort of the people around me that are freaking me out. So in this situation, what I actually do is sit somewhere quiet where there's not a lot of people and actually close my eyes, and just breathe. And not only breathe, when you're actually having an anxiety attack, I find there are moments where you have trouble finding your breath, and as far as the breathing techniques go, in through the nose, out through the mouth type thing, I find when my anxiety levels are high, I find that doesn't work because I can't get a proper breath. So I've got to actually breathe in just purely through my mouth to get it right down into my chest to get a proper breath. So like that. 3 deep breaths, and that can actually help. So that leads to the next one, calming yourself down. With that, sitting, breathing wherever you are, just taking a moment. Close your eyes if you have to, as I say, because some people with social anxiety can actually, when they look around, it can actually freak them out more, and it'll actually escalate the anxiety attack. So if you have to, if looking around for familiar surroundings doesn't work, I would recommend closing your eyes and breathing almost in a meditative state, just until you can regulate your breathing and slow your heart rate a little bit. So number 4 is breathing from the diaphragm, and as I said before, a lot of the time it feels like you've got weight on your chest when you're in the throes of an anxiety attack, and breathing purely in through the nose and out through the mouth a lot of the time when your heart is racing and you're in the throes of an anxiety attack will not work the best. So I recommend just 3 deep breaths. And so that leads us to number 5. Number 5 is while you are sitting there, and as I said before, it's almost like you have to go into a meditative state. Part of being in a meditative state is that you regulate your breathing, which is when you can get a proper breath like that, you then relax your body, just go limp if you have to where you just feel weightless in your whole body, and just continue to breathe. And that is another way of coping with the anxiety attack when it is occurring. Now, number 6 is actually to distract yourself. Now, while this does work, I do have reservations about this one, because I myself believe that while distracting yourself does help in the short term, to distract yourself from whatever you're doing, it won't sort of deal with your anxiety in the long run. It will, in fact, probably, in my experience, next time you have an anxiety attack, if you're sort of ignoring it, in some instances when I have ignored my anxiety, it has come back a little bit worse the next time. So you need to actually, much like your emotions, you need to acknowledge what you're feeling, and anxiety is actually an emotion. So it's important to acknowledge that you are actually having an anxiety attack, and feel it. I mean, although it is painful and it causes us much distress, we do have to acknowledge that it is just anxiety, and with that, identifying where the anxiety is coming from, as I said, and finding out what is causing the anxiety will help us better in the long run, because distracting ourselves is like a band-aid. I believe that the distraction will only work in the short term. Now, I like to, as far as distracting myself, if it's just a little bit of anxiety, and I'm just sort of feeling a little bit anxious, I can put my headphones on and listen to music for half an hour or an hour, and it'll regulate everything, because that is my way of distracting myself. It's always been my way of coping, because I find music relaxing. There was a time in my life where my headphones used to be glued to my head. I very rarely took them off, because I did a few years ago struggle with high levels of anxiety that were on a regular basis. So there was a time in my life where it was that bad, where I had to find distractions, and my way of distracting myself, especially with social anxiety, um, still now when I go out, there isn't a moment where I don't take my headphones with me so I can listen to music if I need to, because especially with cancelling headphones, if you are wearing noise cancelling headphones, then you can block out all the sound around you and only just focus on the music that's going on in your ears. Um, so that is a tool that I have used quite a lot over the years. But as I say, only in major cases of anxiety, when it's too high, when you feel like it's too high that you can't do anything else to bring you back down, is when you need the help of something else. So that is number 6, distracting yourself. So number 7 is to just recognize that you are in these moments having the anxiety attack, and also know that they do end. They don't go forever, and I find that using all these techniques can lessen the process of as far as the length of the anxiety attack goes, because some of them can feel like they go forever, and they are painful and cause us much distress, but actually recognizing that they will end can be another useful tool. So number 8 is actually a good one. Recognize your body is doing what it's supposed to in response to thinking that you are in danger, because in a lot of cases anxiety can be fear-based. So given that in most cases anxiety is fear-based, again we need to work out what has actually triggered that fear response that's thrown our body into survival mode, and once we identify it, we can better solve what we may be feeling as far as the anxiety goes. So number 9 is, even though an anxiety attack may feel like it is out of control, it actually isn't. So basically using these techniques and knowing ourselves better, knowing our anxiety. I mean, for me, I found, and I still find, that being more self-aware as far as the anxiety goes, knowing yourself and knowing what triggers the anxiety, sort of makes it less less to deal with than it is. So um, so anxiety attacks, although when you're right in the middle of one, they may feel like you're spiraling. They may feel like um, you're going to pass out, or even, worst case scenario, have a heart attack. But I think being self aware as far as the anxiety goes, finding out where it comes from, what's triggering it, is a way to better help you find out where it is, what level of anxiety you are actually at, and in regards to that, it will help you better be able to deal with it, as far as solving the anxiety attack and bringing yourself back down. So number 10, the last one, is keeping your body's stress in check. Now, for me, I know, being the self-aware individual that I am, I know that probably a lot of the time I am quite high strung. I'm hyperactive by nature, and I do, on top of that, suffer from insomnia. So lack of sleep, as for, and on top of that, the hyperactivity, going all the time, does cause me to have high levels of anxiety. On top of that, eating healthy, drinking lots of water, because, another thing that I've just noticed recently is I have higher levels of anxiety when I eat a lot of junk food. When I eat like high levels of sugar, can actually make your heart race, and when your heart races too fast, you can bring on an anxiety attack, because your heart doesn't know what is going on. It sort of, again, sends your body into survival mode, because you are basically feeding yourself with sugar and other things, that basically your body is rejecting. Is your body's way of rejecting it by actually bringing on an anxiety attack, because you are too sugared up, and it's your body's way of telling you to maybe try something else. And yeah, water and a healthy diet is a way of lessening your day-to-day anxieties, and I know with the insomnia thing, because I've had insomnia for countless amounts of years as well, that insomnia is not an easy thing to deal with. But as far as the anxiety goes, I think a good night's sleep, when I find that I've had a good night's sleep, my anxiety is less throughout the day. So that is also a helpful tip, just to basically get enough sleep, and just to eat a bit healthier, and drink water, and sort of keep things good in those areas as well. So that was 10 tips for how to deal with anxiety. I hope it was helpful to you all, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I will see you on the next one.